Good evening. A tipper truck packed with explosives went off in the City of London this morning. It killed one man and injured more than 40 other people. Some estimates put the cost of the damage at over £1 billion. The bomb exploded in Bishopsgate near the NatWest Tower. Police had received IRA coded warnings but were still evacuating the area when it went off. It happened close to the Baltic Exchange, which was wrecked by an IRA bomb a year ago.
The column of smoke rising above the city skyline left Londoners in little doubt about the size of the blast. The shockwave was felt over a wide area, the explosion heard several miles away. A team of paramedics relaxing in a nearby office knew immediately what had happened.
That's a big one. That is a huge bomb.
The police had received coded warnings about a bomb in a tipper truck left a short distance from the city's most visible landmark, the NatWest Tower. The paramedics were among the first on the scene and could scarcely believe the devastation. The force of the explosion shattered hundreds of windows, sending glass showering down into the streets below. The bombers clearly hoped to cause maximum destruction to city institutions by leaving the bomb where they did. Given the size of the device, it was inevitable there would be casualties. Although many city offices are closed at the weekend, some people do work on Saturdays, including security guards, builders and maintenance staff. For police and public alike, the shock of being caught in the massive bomb blast was clear to see. The police, concerned about the possibility of a second explosion, moved people out as quickly as they could. Office workers needed little encouragement. Above them, the column of smoke showed how close they'd been to the bomb. Casualties were taken to local hospitals, mostly suffering from cuts caused by flying glass. Thankfully, many of the injuries looked worse than they were. For this security guard, it brought back memories of last year's bomb attack in the city.
We were all surprised that they picked the same hotspot again. And every night virtually we get some sort of scare, but we didn't expect them to do it again in the same area. But what can you say, it's happened. But this time it's a bit closer to us.
Dozens of doctors and nurses reported for duty as soon as they heard the news. For them too, it's been a difficult day.
It is quite a shocking thing to have a whole lot of people walk through your door covered in blood and shaking and in tears, and it has an effect on the staff, of course. We will have to counsel them after the incident is over.
This was the scene tonight in Bishopsgate, where the truck bomb was parked. The explosion was so powerful that the church, which used to occupy the space between these two office blocks, collapsed. The police say they're in no doubt that the bomb was planted by the IRA.
We'd hoped after the deaths in Warrington that there would be some sort of turning point, but that seems to be not the case, and here we have death again.
Tonight the whole area is still sealed off, but the Lord Mayor of London has promised that by Monday the city will be back in business. Peter Gould, BBC News.
Police have appealed for help in tracing the movements of the tipper truck which carried the bomb. It was a dark blue Ford Iveco, registration number G430 DVT or OVT. There's also an emergency telephone number for people worried about relatives or friends. It's 071, that's if you're outside central London, 601 2800. That's 071 601 2800. Last year's explosion at the Baltic Exchange killed 3 people and caused over £800 million worth of damage. Insurers say today's destruction appears to be even worse and could lead to higher premiums.
Once again, the IRA has sent a message that the financial heart of London is a prime target for its bombers. Last year, the city was devastated by a bomb at the Baltic Exchange. It's only just been reopened for business. The insurance costs were unprecedented, but they could be dwarfed by today's attack.
It has to be larger than the Baltic Exchange, so I would guesstimate we're talking in excess of £1 billion.
Police raids over the last year have seized large amounts of fertilizer explosive. It produces a more diffuse blast than Semtex, and it looks as though it was used again today. Concern has been expressed about the ease with which the terrorists can turn it into a bomb.
It's very easy indeed. If I found that a sixth former studying science didn't know how to do it, I would think that he has not really applied himself to his studies and has no interest in current affairs. It is very easy.
After the bomb attack in Warrington last month, the IRA expressed regret that 2 young boys had been killed. But it's plain that the terrorists haven't been deflected from their campaign of violence. Yesterday, they blew up part of an Esso oil terminal in North Shields. Attacking industry, like commerce, is seen as an effective way of keeping up the pressure on the mainland authorities. Last year, only vigilant security prevented an IRA attempt to blow up Canary Wharf in London's Docklands. Like the NatWest Tower, it's a symbolic as well as a geographical landmark. Last month, the Metropolitan Police Commissioner warned that after some recent setbacks, the IRA would be anxious to launch another spectacular attack. The prediction appears to have been fulfilled. John Silverman, BBC News, Scotland Yard.
The EC envoy, Lord Owen, has said the whole Serbian nation could be heading for tragedy after the Bosnian Serb leader, RADOVAN KARADZIC, rejected the latest attempt to get him to sign the peace plan. This would have set up a demilitarised corridor linking 2 zones designated to the Serbs. Mr. Karadzic said the plan was still unacceptable.
For Lord Owen, apparent failure. Had he reached any agreement?
No.
Lord Owen was visibly angry and deeply frustrated at rejection after 3 days of rising optimism that his compromise proposal for a land corridor might have won Bosnian Serb approval. The Bosnian Serb leader was unrepentant.
If we accept this, we are finished in these areas. There is no Serbian people there. We have to see where we are going to place 1,500,000 Serbs if we accept it. You don't understand the conflict between Serbs, Croats and Muslims that lasts for centuries.
Later in Zagreb, Lord Owen's assessment of the rejection was bleak.
Dr. Karadzic is leading not just the Bosnian Serb people down a very dangerous path, but I think he's dragging the whole Serb nation down a very dangerous and tragic path.
Lord Owen has agreed to return here tomorrow for yet more talks with Serbia's President Milosevic, who is apparently still working behind the scenes to achieve some sort of solution. But Lord Owen's aides have said substantive talks with the Bosnian Serbs have effectively ended. Clarence Mitchell, BBC News, Belgrade.
The Foreign Secretary Douglas Hurd says Britain will use force if necessary to rescue Canadian UN troops if they become trapped in Srebrenica. His promise came as European foreign ministers met in Denmark to discuss more direct action against Serbia if tougher sanctions due next week don't work. They said no options had been ruled out.
Under pressure to do more, European governments are shifting towards the possibility of backing airstrikes as less dangerous an option than trying to arm the Muslims without merely intensifying the war. Douglas Hurd says the Americans still haven't decided on any form of military intervention.
And they, like we, don't want to take action, which has an immediate good effect, so that for 24 or 48 hours people say, bravo, well done. But which then doesn't work.
Meeting at a 19th century Danish castle to discuss the horrors of Bosnia, ministers believe sanctions must still be given time to force the Bosnian Serbs to sign the peace plan. The French Foreign Minister Alain Juppé does not rule out other measures, but says first Monday's new blockade of Serbia should be tried for a few weeks.
Any further measures will be examined by the 12 if the policy of sanction is not efficient.
Douglas Hurd seemed to point the way forward most clearly, telling his fellow foreign ministers of a new British military commitment to Canada. The 150 Canadian UN soldiers holding the fragile ceasefire in Srebrenica can count on Britain to mount a military rescue if they should need it. Most significant, any operation to protect the Canadians could involve British airstrikes against Serb positions. So tonight, all the signals are pointing in the same direction, towards the European community falling in behind the United States and supporting selective airstrikes, if that is the option Washington finally chooses. James Robbins, BBC News, Hindsgavl Castle, Denmark.
Bosnian-Croat military commanders have admitted that their forces have committed atrocities against civilians in fighting against Muslims and have ordered an investigation. The admission came as a delegation of ambassadors from the United Nations visited the scene of a massacre near the British troops' headquarters at Vitez.
The houses that have been destroyed in the last 5 days of fighting.
The village of Ahinici, every Muslim house burned out and more than 40 people killed, was a late stop added to the schedule of the travelling United Nations ambassadors. The local Croatian commander had admitted that his forces were responsible for the area and had promised a commission of inquiry. It will take more than that to satisfy the ambassadors.
This is not ethnic cleansing, this is ethnic extermination, this is criminal act, this is barbaric.
There were reports of more ethnic cleansing in central Bosnia, even as the British were clearing up after the last time. This is the contradiction of their mandate. They can save lives by feeding people. They cannot save lives by stopping them being killed.
All we can do about it at the moment is report it. Sadly, that's all we can do about it. If we can't get access to the actual villages themselves, if we can get access, then we will, as we have been doing, position ourselves between the opposing forces while we extract women and children.
And it's dangerous work. In this village, the British came under fire and the commanding officer returned it personally. The target was an outcrop of rock and attackers unidentified. In a season of ethnic cleansing, the UN troops can defend themselves, but sadly, no one else. Martin Bell, BBC News, Jelenac, Bosnia.
Voting has begun in the far east of the Russian Federation in the referendum over who rules Russia. President Yeltsin has made a final appeal to the people, saying that victory for him would mean a peaceful breakthrough into the future. But defeat would leave Russia haunted by the ghosts of dictatorship.
Boris Yeltsin was radiating confidence today, the eve of the referendum that will decide whether or not he stays in office. Victory tomorrow means he'll try to push through a new constitution that gives him much more power. Defeat means he'll have to resign. The result is too close to call, and tonight Mr. Yeltsin went on television to make a final appeal to the voters. He said if he loses, the ghost of dictatorship will continue to haunt Russia. By contrast, if he wins, he promised there'll be a peaceful outcome to this country's power struggle. He'll create a presidential republic and replace the Congress of People's Deputies with a new parliament. Ruslan Khasbalatov, one of Mr. Yeltsin's leading opponents, has also appeared on TV to make a late plea for a no vote. He claimed today that a cult of personality now surrounds Mr. Yeltsin. As the ballot papers were being prepared tonight, the latest opinion poll suggested a Yeltsin victory with 57% support. The opposition claimed that if he does win, he'll immediately impose presidential rule. His advisers, though, say that's nonsense.
There will be no military rule, there will be no use of force, but President will insist that the results of referendum should be translated, should be transformed into legal acts.
So tonight the campaign has finally come to a close. It's been hard fought with plenty of personal abuse and mudslinging, what you might expect to find in the West, in fact. And if nothing else, it's shown that democracy here in Russia is very much alive and kicking. Ben Brown, BBC News, Moscow.
And now with details of the race for promotion to the FA Premier League and the rest of the sport, here's Rob Bonnet.
Portsmouth have ended Newcastle United's 7-month domination of the First Division. They went top with a victory over Wolverhampton Wanderers, Paul Walsh scoring his 9th goal of the season to clinch victory just 4 minutes from time. Elsewhere, a David Speedy goal for West Ham confirmed relegation for Bristol Rovers and kept up pressure on the leaders. West Ham are 2 points behind Newcastle, who play Sunderland tomorrow. Swindon drew at Notts County, Leicester lost at Peterborough and Tranmere drew at Birmingham. The confusion over the severity of Paul Gascoigne's leg injury has been resolved, and England are optimistic he will play against Holland in next Wednesday's World Cup qualifier at Wembley. They'd been concerned he was suffering a repeat of his previous knee ligament damage, but although he only posed for photographs today and didn't train, his news is now more hopeful.
His real problem is that he's got a calf strain at the very top of his calf. So he's going to have treatment for the next 2 days, and we're going to see what he's like on Monday morning. We're optimistic that he's going to be okay, and if he is, then we're in business.
The crowd's treatment of John Barnes at England's last Wembley match prompted Mr Taylor to say that he expected to be even more heavily booed this Wednesday. That's because he's excluded Chris Waddle from the squad. And Tom Boyd and Alan McLaren are out of Scotland's squad to play Portugal. Both have ankle ligament damage and failed fitness tests today. Bath are Rugby Union's Courage League champions for the third successive season. They clinched the title this afternoon with a 19 points to 13 victory at Saracens.
For Bath, up against a Saracens side who'd already been relegated, it should have been an occasion to claim the title with a final flourish. It turned out to be nothing of the sort, though they did open up an 11-point lead with their one fluent move of the match, finished off by Jonathan Callard. It was a rare glimpse of their true form. In the second half, Saracens seized the initiative and closed the gap to a single point as Davis touched down with Bath's vaunted pack in unaccustomed disarray. Then, with just 8 minutes left, Hughes swung over his second drop goal and the unthinkable seemed on the verge of happening. A penalty then put Bath back in front, and in the final seconds, de Glanville cleverly sent Callard clear to make sure. For England's Jonathan Webb, it had been a fitting, if nerve-wracking, end to a record-breaking rugby career, and for Bath, a fourth title in 5 years to confirm them as England's outstanding club side.
And Llanelli will play Neath in the final of the Swalec Cup. Llanelli beat rivals Swansea 29-18 at Cardiff Arms Park, running in 3 tries, the best from the Wales captain Ieuan Evans. In the other match, Neath turned round a half-time deficit to beat Bridgend, the former Wales fullback Paul Thorburn scoring as Neath won 33-15. Topsham Bay, ridden by Richard Dunwoody, won the last major race of the national hunt season, the Whitbread Gold Cup at Sandown, but only after a steward's inquiry. Topsham Bay jumped the last alongside Give Us a Buck, ridden by Paul Holly. Peter Bromley is the commentator.
Up the hill, Topsham Bay won't give in. They're getting very close together and very tired. It's Give Us a Buck and Topsham Bay. Give Us a Buck by half a length. Give Us a Buck and Topsham Bay.
But although Give Us a Buck crossed the line first, a steward's inquiry decided he'd obstructed Topsham Bay. The placings were reversed, leaving Topsham Bay the winner for the second year running. Frank Bruno has weighed in 5 pounds heavier than his opponent Carl Williams for tonight's heavyweight fight in Birmingham.
16 stone, 7 pound, 12 ounces.
That's nearly a stone lighter than when he last fought 6 months ago against Pierre Kotzer. Bruno regards Williams as a faster opponent and thinks his weight is ideal.
I had to come in light because this guy's going to be shifting all around the ring like a fly tonight, Harry, so I had to be a bit more sharper. That's why I come in a little bit light, and I've been training very, very super hard for this fight, Harry.
And if Bruno wins, he can expect a world title fight with Lennox Lewis, provided he beats Tony Tucker next month. Michael.
Tonight's main news again, there's been a massive bomb explosion in the City of London. 1 man is known to have died. And that's the BBC News Tonight. Good night.
By the end of this decade, more than 1 million people will be over 85. Never before have so many lived so long. But we can no longer bank on state and family to look after us when we're old and frail. Now some families are abandoning elderly relatives.
I had made a big mistake in having her, thinking I could care for her.
That's Dumping Granny on Panorama, Monday 9:30 on BBC1.
Good evening. Well, if like me you're feeling a little bit under the weather, perhaps Guernsey was a place to escape to today. Almost 11 hours of sunshine down there. But things are changing now. There's some rain coming in across the Cherbourg Peninsula and more rain pushing up across south-east England, extending through much of East Anglia just at the present time. Elsewhere, some showers still left across the Pennines, across Northern Ireland and through the northwestern part of Scotland as well. Now, it's this rain in the southeastern corner that's going to become more extensive as we go through tonight. It'll cover much of central and eastern England, pushing right the way up into northeastern parts there. So quite heavy rain likely, with the odd clap of thunder a possibility as well. Now further west and north, clearer skies, it will turn a bit misty. It'll certainly turn cooler as well, temperatures dipping to about 4 or 5. But under this cloud cover further south, around about 7 or 8 degrees. Well, tomorrow's chart looks like that, with this front beginning to move westwards and introducing eventually somewhat brighter weather to southeastern parts of the country. But to start the day, over many parts of England, it'll be cloudy and misty, some heavy rain about, the odd clap of thunder too. It won't be too long though before skies begin to brighten across East Anglia and the southeast, and you'll find that brighter weather extending to many central and eastern parts of the country as we go through the day. But at the same time, the rain pushing into Wales, pushing across much of northern England, up into central and eastern parts of Scotland, with some showers out there in the west. A breezier day generally, and feeling quite muggy in the south and east.
Sunday night on BBC1, and downhill racing with a difference, courtesy of Foggy, Compo and Clegg, and the last of the summer wine. When a cabinet minister dies, Inspector Allen discovers that more than one person had a motive.
I hate you. On your head be it. You was a womanizer.
I swear I will kill you. Another mystery for Inspector Allen at 7:30. Followed by September in Provence, season of grapes, their collection, and all the backbreaking...